Let's jump right in. Today's explainer takes something you might normally just watch for a quick laugh and looks at it through a totally different lens. We're breaking down a stand-up routine by comedian and actor Jimmy O. Yang. But we're not just here for the punchlines. No, we are treating his hilarious real-life anecdotes as actual brilliant sociological data points. Yang is basically acting as a cultural anthropologist here, documenting the immigrant experience, modern relationships, and some pretty wild generational divides. And honestly, the way he breaks this all down is absolutely fascinating.
So we have to start right at the foundation of his worldview, which is rooted in his mom's highly specific, terrifyingly effective brand of fear-mongering. Now for Yang, fear wasn't about, monsters under the bed. It was about seemingly harmless, everyday activities carrying literal, lethal consequences. Go outside without a jacket? You're catching pneumonia. Sleep with wet hair? You're basically dead. Play video games? That's going to cause childhood leukemia. It perfectly highlights a common cultural parenting technique, using extreme, totally disproportionate terror just to keep you in line. It creates this environment of constant survival, which ironically kind of desensitizes you to normal fears later in life.
Which brings us to our first major section, navigating modern representation.
Okay, so as Young grew up and transitioned from a fearful kid to a successful actor in Hollywood, he ran headfirst into the immense social pressures of representing his culture on a global stage. Now, one of the biggest myths out there is the idea that Asian cultures are just this one giant monolith. Young completely shatters this. He categorizes these complex social behaviors into easily identifiable audio cues based entirely on how different demographics express their strongest emotion. Disappointment. For example, Chinese disappointment is just sheer disgust, literally waving the air as if to clear a smoky room. Japanese disappointment, it's more inquisitive, asking a confused why. And Korean disappointment is intense and guttural, but somehow still ends with a very polite thank you.
But representation isn't just about how you act, it's about what you look like in pop culture. Think about this. For 6 straight years, Jimmy's only recognizable pop culture option as an Asian man on Halloween was Bruce Lee. It's a pretty stark visual of just how limited media representation has historically been. But then, the massive global success of the show Squid Game changed everything. Suddenly, you could just throw on a green tracksuit with an Indian friend, instantly be recognized, and boom, it's a massive, comfortable update to the Halloween wardrobe. That's a huge milestone for everyday representation.
However, carrying that banner of representation can definitely backfire spectacularly. When you feel the intense weight of representing your entire race at a prestigious events like the Emmys, the anxiety can, make you glitch. In his eagerness to network, Yang confidently congratulated the white actress Rachel Brosnahan on her success, only to hear back, "I'm not Rachel Brosnahan, I'm Evan Rachel Wood." In a state of absolute, flushed panic, realizing he just proved the stereotype that all white people look alike to him, he just blurted out, "My name is Aquafina." It perfectly captures the sweat-inducing pressure of trying to be the perfect cultural representative when you already feel totally out of place.
Let's move on to Section 2, Relationship Dynamics and Love Languages.
Shifting our focus from Hollywood over to home, modern economics have really changed how relationships work. Fully embracing gender equality, Yang gleefully claims the title of sugar baby in relation to his highly successful venture capitalist girlfriend. By proudly defining himself as literally the poorest person she knows, he's totally flipping traditional breadwinner expectations on their head. It's a really fascinating look at how modern couples are comfortably rewriting financial power dynamics and just leaning into new roles completely without ego.
But hey, financial equality absolutely does not mean behavioral equality. Just look at the side-by-side behavioral comparison of how differently men and women physically orient themselves when socializing in a living room. On one side, you have intense emotional connection. Women sitting in a circle, making direct eye contact, every single candle in the room lit. On the other side, male bonding. Sitting in a straight line, facing a TV on full blast, with absolutely zero eye contact for like 6 hours straight. It's a hilarious yet incredibly accurate sociological snapshot of how different genders facilitate intimacy. One through direct engagement, and the other through shared parallel distraction.
Now, navigating a cross-cultural relationship also means figuring out shared love languages, right? Like giving gifts. For Jimmy, giving his girlfriend his prized Jordan sneakers is the ultimate sign of trust. But this leads to a brilliant anthropological breakdown of cultural foot hygiene and indoor etiquette. White culture is depicted as walking barefoot on hot cement to get in touch with Mother Earth. Black culture is shown with a strict adherence to wearing socks, even stepping straight out of the shower. And Asian culture, that involves a complex, multi-layered system of 2 pairs of house shoes, 2 pairs of outdoor Crocs, and stolen Vegas hotel slippers to ensure sure a foot never ever touches the raw floor. It's an amazing look at how our domestic habits are just deeply ingrained in our cultural DNA.
Up next is Section 3, the economics of loser friends.
This brings us to a theme that directly challenges that traditional rigid LinkedIn advice telling you to only surround yourself with successful people. Yang actually argues that successful people are quite boring and honestly too busy to hang out. To prove his point, he introduces us to his epic case study of a friend, Guam Felix. Felix is basically the ultimate anti-hustler. He's a 42-year-old aiming for government disability for a back injury he got at age 19. His philosophy is a masterclass in zero personal responsibility. Anything good that happens, like crashing rent-free on a friend's couch, is God's grace. But anything bad, like getting a speeding ticket, that's just the government keeping him down.
And the craziest part of all this, Felix actually executed his ultimate life goal to win the lottery and hit the buffet. His chaotic financial journey on national television is wild. It started with him crafting a Master Raiden costume out of a blue bedsheet and a rice patty hat just to get on the show Let's Make a Deal. He wins a $5,000 living room set, gambles it for a 1 in 3 chance of 50 grand, and actually wins the cash. He achieves his dream, celebrating at the Buca di Beppo buffet. But the peak is followed by an immediate downfall. Within 3 months, the money is totally gone, and because he ignored taxes, he ends up owing the IRS $20,000. It's a modern economic tragedy, but it proves that your loser friends provide the greatest cautionary tales, and for sure, the absolute best entertainment.
Which brings us to our final section, parental frugality and cultural quirks.
For our deepest sociological data point, we're examining the extreme frugality and hilariously misguided habits of immigrant parents. Yang breaks down the actual mechanics of boasting, highlighting how our culture dictates what we value. Some cultures brag about the sheer volume of their spending, right? Like, white culture might emphasize the expensive private schools or remodeling, while black culture might boast about the exact price tags of $80,000 cars or million-dollar chains. But Asian culture flips the script entirely. The brag is in how little money was spent. The art is entirely in the savings. Acquiring something valuable for pennies on the dollar is literally treated like a competitive sport.
But it's not just money where we see this disconnect. It's also in how different generations navigate modern social media. For example, Young's father posted a very pleasant, peaceful photo of palm trees and birds on Instagram, and he captioned it with the slogan, "All lives matter." To him, it was a literal, surface-level statement, like the birds matter, the trees matter. He had absolutely no idea about the heavy socio-political weight that phrase actually carries. It's a prime example of how cultural context can just completely get lost across generational lines.
Yet what makes Yang's worldview so compelling is how he masterfully turns these quirks into immense cultural pride. He points out that his people were actually the original trailblazers. BTS isn't just a globally dominant boy band. Considering South Korea's mandatory military service, they are basically a terrifyingly coordinated squad of pink-haired soldiers on the battlefield. That older lady in Chinatown who wore a medical mask back in 1995, she wasn't weird. She was the Kendall Jenner of pandemic mandates. And extreme hands-free bowing, that's just a centuries-old social distancing technique. He brilliantly reframes these marginalized behaviors as visionary global trends.
And this all comes to a head with the ultimate synthesis of immigrant pride and extreme frugality. We see this fierce, unyielding dedication to savings in his father's behavior outside a Clippers game. Faced with street vendors selling bacon-wrapped hot dogs for $5 each, his father offers $8 for 2. When the vendor refuses, his dad employs the ultimate haggling strategy, loudly announcing he's walking away. He is entirely willing to proudly accept physical hunger over the psychological defeat of paying full price. It's an unbending matter of principle.
But this tense standoff is instantly resolved by the true mastermind of the family, his mother. She walks up from behind, holding 4 hot dogs, right? Which brings us to the ultimate question that defines his mother's love, their extreme frugal pride, and this entire cultural worldview. It leaves us wondering, and I really want you to think about this. How much do you think she actually paid for those 4 hot dogs? What is the true value of a deal when it's literally your primary love language? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.